I was leading chants there and some stranger lifted me up. It's time to come out of the closet. No, not that kind of closet. That ship has sailed. I'm talking about a different kind of closet. Now, you all know me as that YouTuber who makes videos about Pathfinder RPG and D&D, and many of you also know that I'm a lawyer. And I've been getting a lot of comments recently, because I've been saying recently that I don't earn money as a lawyer, and people are in disbelief. They're like, they can't believe it. This is the video where Ronald the Rules Lawyer says who he really is. Oh, I wasn't going to bear all in this video. I'm talking about the fact that I'm a left-wing radical political activist, and being a lawyer is part of that. YouTube is my day job. I talk about who I am today and how Pathfinder RPG saved my life. Now, why am I doing this? I'll say more at the end, but it's prompted by current events in Palestine and Israel. They compel me to say something about them, and I can't continue compartmentalizing who I am. I have this public persona that most people know me through, but I can't separate that and the causes that I've devoted my life to. We'll see how people react to this video, but I will keep comments off on this video for some obvious reasons. Engaging with anonymous strangers on the broader internet is a terrible place to have political discussion. Within reason, people are free to discuss things I talk about in this video on my Discord server in the non-gaming channel called Social Justice. And of course, I have the right to protect myself from harassment. And I know that this is the right decision. They say that when you come out of the gay closet, you will lose some friends, but you also gain new friends, and you find out who among your friends are your true friends. And that was definitely true for me, and I think that will be true for my politics. Now, who is Ronald the Rules Lawyer? Well, many of you know some, and many of you have seen the Rules Lawyer rap on my channel page. Before I became a player and GM of tabletop role-playing games and started an after-school middle school program for RPGs relatively late in my life, I'd love to do more videos on the story of running that class, by the way. I was and am still a political activist and lawyer. That's clear in the rap. And I've also done some things on my channel that are of a political bent. I boycotted making videos on Pathfinder RPG so long as Paizo did not recognize the United Paizo Workers Union. And they recognized the union hours after my video went up. I don't claim individual credit. I was one of many voices, but that was a happily short boycott. I had sharp words for Wizards of the Coast when they tried to revise the OGL. I helped break the story along with a few others before it got into mainstream press that they were trying to revoke the OGL. I analyzed their draft OGLs and said that they were attacks on the community. I called their playtest survey for a new OGL a farce and to boycott it. And I always maintained that forcing WotC not to revoke the OGL was absolutely winnable, and we won. I also have been calling for a boycott of WotC over them hiring Pinkerton goons and working with a company that busts unions. And I made that video from a building occupation when UC-Berkeley students and community members occupied the anthropology library at the University of California at Berkeley because the administration was trying to close it down. We were fighting to defend public education. I lived there for most of 3 months this year, and we did win our demand. And I'll have a link to more info in the video description. But all this is only my most recent history. I started my after-school middle school class in 2012, and by then I already had been a veteran organizer with a civil rights organization, BAMN, for 17 years. I also became a lawyer for BAMN, and I still work for them and am an organizer for them to this day. And me? My name is Ronald Cruz, not to be confused with the Puerto Rican boxer. I think I was pretty political from a young age, and my mom definitely would have told you I was destined for great things. This is a picture of me at 8 years old, winning a citywide essay contest, Martin Luther King essay contest. I wish I could find that old essay. I'd probably have to contact the city to do that. I joined BAM in 1995, within weeks of starting my undergraduate studies at UC-Berkeley. BAM stands for the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action, Integration, and Immigrant Rights, and Fight for Equality by any means necessary. And that's what BAM stands for, the last 4 words. And any means necessary means what works. It means building a mass, militant, integrated, independent, youth-led civil rights movement. So 18-year-old me joined BAM. For me, being in a political group and working with them and coming out as a gay person were the same thing. The first people I came out to were members of BAMN. For me, coming out and being a political leader went hand in hand. I got to be myself. And for me, what I wanted was to have a mass new civil rights movement like the movement in the 1950s and 60s. There are so many injustices that need to end. And the only way that can happen is if the power is in the majority of people who do not have power in our societies, including those that claim to be democracies. I also joined BAMN because it was fighting racism. And for me, I felt and I feel and I know that fighting racism is key to winning liberation for LGBT plus people. The modern gay liberation movement actually was started by Black and Puerto Rican youth, many of them drag queens and trans people, in the Stonewall Inn. They not only were inspired by, but were direct participants in many of the civil rights struggles in New York in the 1960s and across the country. And that informed why they did what they did on that night, which inspired a whole uprising of New York's gay community over the next few days. And BAMN made clear to me that they stand unequivocally on the side of the oppressed, taking independent mass action for their own liberation and social progress. So when I joined UC-Berkeley in 1995, the university regents who run the UC system had just banned affirmative action, which are desegregation programs for higher education and employment that were won out of the civil rights and Black power struggles of the 1960s. Their ban led to a precipitous drop in Black, Latino, and Native American students at UC-Berkeley. In Berkeley Law School, which I eventually graduated from, only one Black student got in 1 year. While we forced the regents to reverse their ban several years later, the attack had already started spreading and became national and led to last year's terrible decision by the Supreme Court against affirmative action and allowing for a new Jim Crow segregation and inequality in America. The struggle continues, of course, but meanwhile, BAMN has expanded beyond affirmative action. One central fight we've been building has been the fight of immigrants, migrants, and refugees to have citizenship rights wherever they are, as the crises of global warming and imperialist nations' exploitation of poor countries across the globe have forced people to move. We are for a rational definition of citizenship. If you live here, learn here, work here, and otherwise contribute to this society, then the law should reflect that and recognize you as a citizen. We fight racism because we have to defeat the divide and rule policies of the rich in order to unite all workers against our joint oppressors. BAMN also has members in teachers' unions and has fought to have strikes that unite the teachers' demands for better working conditions with the civil rights struggles of poor and segregated communities demanding equal quality education. With BAMN, I've worked on many other struggles against injustice, including jailing police officers who murder Black and brown people, also for LGBT plus equality and for women's liberation. So I was a pretty well-known organizer and activist at UC-Berkeley in my tenure there as a student for many years. I got 3 different degrees there. During 1 year, I ran for student government president. Here's a video you can find on YouTube if you're interested. And a couple of years later, Pathfinder RPG saved my life. And I'm about to explain why. In November of 2011, there had been sweeping across the country the Occupy movement, protesting economic inequality. People created an encampment in Oakland, which neighbors Berkeley, to join the Occupy movement, and the mayor of Oakland brutally repressed it, sending in the police. And the whole city came out in support of them, and I joined many of those demonstrations. And meanwhile, the UC regents wanted to have another severe tuition hike, and were about to vote to approve that at their next meeting. And so students at UC-Berkeley plan to have an encampment on the historic Sproul Plaza, the birth of the free speech movement. The Chancellor, Robert Birgeneau, however, did not want this and sent in the police to break it up, and I, along with other members in BAMN, we gave leadership on the ground to prevent that from happening. So next is going to be a video. That's me in the second row, as you can see. We're interposing ourselves between the police and the tents that the police wanted to tear down. Now I want to give a content warning. What you're about to see was uncalled for, and it's going to be disturbing to many. Okay, that chant you just heard, education is a right, don't give an inch, I started that one. I've been spitting lyrics since I was a youngster. And you'll also see that I'm wearing my backpack in a strange way. My backpack's in front of my body, and I did it because I anticipated the police will attack us, and arguably I should have been in the front row, and I've been teased since. It looks like I'm holding two other people in BAM in front of me as shields, but that wasn't my intention. If I had thought about it, I would have been in the front. Now take a look at me in these next few seconds. Okay, see that? Oh, I need to replay it. Right there. Well, in my backpack, some of you may guess this already, was the Pathfinder 1st edition core rulebook. That is a 576-page book. That is a monster. And I'm not actually sure why I had that book on me that day. I think I planned to be part of the encampment and wanted some reading, or was going to prep for a campaign. I don't know. But it turned out to be very useful and saved me from injury. Still, despite how violent you can see the police were, people were still very much standing their ground, and they have a lot to be proud of. And though the police tore down the tents, protesters immediately erected new tents. And this video, as you can imagine, became a big outrage. It was posted immediately. Someone else in BAM took this video and we put it up online. First, there was a continuous mass meeting there. People, including me, we gave speeches there. And I went out to the dormitories to get more people out to Sproul Plaza to knock on some doors and address some meetings I found. And I remember one guy opening his door and his roommate was watching the video. They probably were both watching it right when I knocked on their door. Everyone was talking about it. And thousands of people came out that night to defend the tents. And the police attacked again and were even more violent. This video is more disturbing than the previous one. Again, I warn you.
Hey!
And students had a campus-wide strike several days later. In the days leading up to the strike, I did news interviews to help build support for it.
The General Assembly voted on a set of demands for tomorrow's strike, which included calling for Chancellor Bergeneau to resign and defending free speech rights of students and reversing the fee hikes and cuts that have happened in the UC system in the last 2 years. The movements of the campuses were tremendous and advanced everybody. The one free speech ended a costly and immoral war in Vietnam and really reshaped our society to be more democratic and egalitarian. And that's what the students who were there last Wednesday were saying, that we cannot let the rich who are leading our globe to ruin at the moment and have no solutions for the economy or the environmental crisis cannot be the ones who solely lead the way. That our universities should be places of critical thinking and free inquiry in which we collectively solve the problems that face us, because what's going on right now is just a dead-end road.
I also had been a lawyer for BAM just short of 2 years and filed my first big lawsuit, a federal lawsuit against my alma mater, against not only the police, but also the chancellor and his executive team for sicking the police on us that day. So we were fighting on that front, also fighting to drop the charges that the university brought against peaceful protesters. And as they say, the best defense is a good offense. We, with our lawsuit, were able to put the university administration on the defensive. And the charges were dropped. The outcome of the court case was that a few years later, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals said that the actions of the police and the university administrators were completely justified. They didn't even allow us to have a trial. And we had the legal arguments on our side, but the reality is that the courts pretend to follow the law and usually make it suit the whims of the powerful, and they have to be held accountable through the movement. However, our efforts were successful in other ways. First, we did force the chancellor to step down months later, and it has since then put a check on the administration of UC-Berkeley, which has so far felt like it cannot get away with using the same over-the-top violence in the years since. So, when I say I don't get paid as a lawyer, it's true. Well, mostly true. I actually have started to receive a small stipend, but the vast majority of my income comes from this channel, the associated Patreon, and private game mastering that I do. Because I'm an extension of BAMN and do whatever lawyer work is needed to support the movement, there is no income. We defend people from criminal charges for protesting, protect people from deportations, and protect employees from being fired by discriminatory employers. So a lot of this work is for people who can't afford to pay. And hopefully we'll see a civil judgment in the future that has a big payoff, but as you can see, the courts are very biased. So to continue with my history, in 2012, I started my after-school, middle school program in order to have an income. I also started private game mastering for the kids on the weekends. That program stopped with COVID, and then I started my YouTube channel soon after. However, doing all this, I still have remained full-time and active as a organizer and attorney with BAMN. And in fact, I'd say that despite now 28 years passing, that my commitment is greater than ever, because the last several years have made clear that if there is not a mass movement showing a way forward that gives people cause for hope, then we face the real danger of a fascist transformation in the United States and in other countries, a threat that is linked with the threats of world war and environmental catastrophe. There needs to be a mass movement, and for that to happen, there need to be clear voices that speak for that movement and stand on the right side of history. So if you'll indulge me, I'll show a couple of short clips from a couple of recent speeches I made. First is a clip from the March 31st, 2022 walkout for trans rights that many high school students and middle school students had across the country. I had the pleasure of speaking to a group of students who had just walked out in San Francisco.
Trans people, we know, are fighting simply by being themselves for everybody's freedom. For me as a gay man, for me I have the right to love anyone I want, to define my own relationships with and to choose freely who I love and associate with. That's for everybody, gay, straight, trans, for all of our rights. And because trans people are the leading edge of the fight for our freedom. We know, as mentioned earlier, that it was trans people and drag queens, many of them black and Puerto Rican, who did the Stonewall uprising that started the and that was not a coincidence. It was because they, in their own individual struggles, in their own fights with their own parents, with their own oppressions in their families, and with their participation in the civil rights movement, that they had the boldness and confidence to stand up to police brutality and push the police back. These laws that are being passed around the country, you, the young people, people like you your age in Tennessee, Florida, and Mississippi do not agree with these laws. Many of them are walking out too. And if we walk out, no matter what the law says, we can make those laws a dead letter. They cannot put us back in the closet, and they cannot stop our movement if we take action.
A few months later, when the Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade and attacked abortion rights, I also was part of marches and gave the following speech at a march in San Francisco.
The right wing that Clarence Thomas represents has much more in store. They want to overturn the right of gay marriage, the right of contraception. Fuck that! They want to use the Constitution as a weapon against democracy. But we, the vast majority of Americans, do not think the Constitution is that. They think it defends our freedoms. Fundamental freedoms and rights. have a radical movement that starts from the standpoint that if the Constitution is a tool of the elite for the right wing, then it is not our Constitution. We fight for this to be our country. We fight for something else that actually defends equality and our rights.
And now what has prompted me to make this video? So the Israeli invasion of Gaza is a genocide and ethnic cleansing that's happening in full view of the world. And I can't be silent on that. The US news media has been very pro-Israel, which is not surprising because Israel has been the enforcer of US and Western imperialism's interests in the Middle East for decades. Israel, the United States, and also Britain have been violating the Oslo Accords of 1993 and 1995, promising the Palestinians a state. The attempt to destroy the people and infrastructure of Gaza will not bring peace. It will destabilize further the Middle East and is already leading to a more dangerous world. Even before October 7th, the Israeli government of Netanyahu was moving towards fascism, taking over the courts. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis, including many Jewish Israelis, filled the streets against this attack on democracy. So the struggle for human rights and for democracy now are united in that for any of those to advance, the Palestinians must win. And that means, first of all, ending the invasion of Gaza by the Israeli army. It also means the Palestinians having the state that they've been promised for 30 years. And for the Palestinians in Gaza, West Bank, Israel, and the Palestinian refugees and other Arab nations to have equality and justice. And that includes citizenship and freedom of movement. There's a lot more to say on this, but I refer everybody who is interested to look at the statement that I'll link to in the video description on our website. It says things far better than I can. And for people who want to engage with me or with others on this issue, again, comments on this video are closed for reasons I've explained, but I will include links to my social media in the video description. I reserve the right, of course, to make these channels safe spaces for discriminated against groups. I will only engage with people who have read the flyer and have considered what it says. And if you're interested in getting involved in BAM, you can get more information on the BAM website, link in the description. And days after recording most of this video, I went to this protest in Los Angeles protesting against Biden, who had this big fundraiser charging $500,000 for some plates with Hollywood moguls, and we were demanding that he stop U.S. support for the genocide in Gaza and demand Israel withdraw all military troops now. But yeah, I was leading chants there, and some stranger lifted me up.
Genocide has got to go! Shut it down! Shut it down! Genocide has got to go! Shut it down! Shut it down!
So that's it. I feel a sense of relief having come out and done this video. Of course, this channel will be by and large unchanged. It will continue to be a gaming channel about Pathfinder 2e and D&D and other tabletop role-playing games. I am still a nerd, a gay, militant, radical lawyer nerd, but still a nerd. In the immediate future, I, depending on interest, plan to do more videos covering the history of D&D and Pathfinder, and continue my level 1 to 20 series building Absurd in Pathfinder 2e. I will end this video with a dedication, but first the usual outro stuff, and it's more important this time than ever. Some people will stop following me or stop supporting me, and I can understand that. But I hope that those who do will support me more than they have. So first, like and subscribe, do the usual, and support my Patreon. Because I don't make money as a lawyer, and I need the support to continue to be able to do these RPG videos. It takes a lot of time. You'll also get early access to many videos, exclusive access to other videos, and for Tier 2 supporters and above, you get to watch me running Pathfinder for D&D YouTubers. And my Discord is a great community. People talk Pathfinder and other gaming. There's also a drop-in Pathfinder 2e organized play system. So the dedication. Going through this history of myself made me reflect on a lot of things, and I also saw some old photos. And I want to dedicate this video to a woman, an amazing woman who really inspired me, who's no longer with us. I dedicate this video to Joyce Schon, a gay Jewish woman, another generation earlier than me, who I met when I joined BAMN, who had devoted her life to these politics. She was also my mentor, taught me a lot of what I know, who was a firebrand. She had a clear sense of, and a pride of being involved in what we do. And when I felt any hesitation about putting out this video, when I thought of her, all that vanished. And I just want to say thank you, Joyce. She passed away several years ago after fighting a battle with cancer. I remember maybe a few weeks after I joined BAMN, her driving me home, and I asked her, is that movement in the 1960s, is that going to happen again? And she said with absolute certainty, yes. And she became a lawyer as well. We worked on cases together, and she taught me so much of what I know. And it's unfortunate that she hasn't been able to live on as we enter a very important period of history, so that we could all benefit from her immense knowledge and talents and leadership. I dedicate this to you, and I hope to be able to live up to your legacy. So that's it. I am Ronald the Rules Lawyer, and I will always be Ronald the Rules Lawyer. I'll see you next time.